Hi Matt, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
It's good over here. How is there?
Good, you're not too far from me now. There
Yeah.
technically could be a meetup somewhere, maybe in Detroit or something. I don't know.
So
Just
let's
kidding.
jump into the podcast. Welcome to Madlookz VFX podcast. For the one who are new here, can you give a casual intro about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Matt Skonicki. I think I'm a junior compositor. I work for Tower 33
Mhm.
VFX. So they do a lot of Netflix shows. Uh, I would say probably strictly mostly like junior style work. Uh, but it's really great, and my boss is awesome, and the team is a lot of LA-based compositors,
Mhm.
and I get to work on my favorite show on Netflix. I'm super crazy excited, so I'm going to be doing that this summer. I won't go into what it is, but I'm super stoked about doing that. But as far as an intro, I was just originally like a lot of people. I got interested in film as a kid. I'd go out. The old dad gives you the video camera thing, and you run out the door and you
Mhm.
film.
Yeah.
And that was to me really cool. And then I went to film school.
Mhm.
Got out of that, and then I found myself moving more towards I just doing live action and CG. That
Mhm.
was starting to open up as an avenue of understanding film. And of course, we all went to see Jurassic Park, and we're like, oh, I want to do visual effects. Um, so from there, I just started learning VFX, and then eventually I started working. Not that I really intended to, but it was a job working for as a character artist and character technical artist at NetherRealm Studios, what is now
Mhm.
NetherRealm Studios in Chicago, which they do the Mortal Kombat series. So I got myself on about 12 games. Got to work with amazing artists that they all went off to work at Weta and every single, not just in VFX, but in game.
Mhm.
And they're all like head honchos now, which is really crazy. And we all started out as interns. But it
Year
was a blast. And then I found myself transitioning to teaching. Good.
no, which year was that actually?
Which year was it? I don't know, actually. Time has totally.
Forgot that.
I'm trying to remember now. I think it was 2007.
Okay, not long
Yeah,
back.
I'm a little bit of a late bloomer on that one. Yeah, I mean, I think I was in my early 30s when I finally started getting a move on, so to speak. Um, yeah, so yeah, from there I just I found myself liking teaching. My one of my teachers or one of my fellow workers was like, "Hey, you want to go teach at Columbia College Chicago?" I'm like, "Sure, yeah." And how's that work? He's like, well, you just babysit a bunch of kids. And I go, babysit? Yeah. I said, that's not a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Um, so I did there. Then I taught at Tribeca Flashpoint Academy, which changed its names like 10 times. And now I don't know what it's called now. They got bought out. But and then it just came to a point where I was invited to come to Purdue through a friend of mine who teaches at Purdue to get my master's because it seems a lot of schools for teaching, especially higher institutional learnings, require a master's. I was sort of like grandfathered into these other places to teach
Mhm. Mhm.
just because I had experience. But then I'm like, okay, so my friend made it pretty easy. He's like, just come on down, work as a TA, and then you can get a free education, and go back to college in your 40s. So it's been a little bit of Rodney Dangerfield for those of you who would know
Yeah.
what that is. Back to school. I didn't realize how young people are here. They're all in their early 20s. Even the grad student friends of mine that I hang out with are very,
Oh,
very
nice.
young, like their early 20s. There's like no old farts that just happen to go back to college.
Yeah,
So
lucky.
yeah, it's been a blast. So
You're lucky.
I'm lucky. Yeah, it's nice to get away from Chicago. It's nice to be in a rural town. I love it. I mean, I don't miss Chicago one bit. I mean, at least right now. For many, 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 many years, I tried to get into a lot of the post houses in Chicago,
Mhm.
and they were hiring mostly LA artists, and there isn't a lot of talent in Chicago.
Mhm.
And the more I look at these interviews, I start to unravel my history as to why I never really got any gigs in Chicago, or maybe I suck. But
Mhm.
um, the fact that nobody wants to take a risk on a junior, so they don't want to hire juniors. And on top of that, and that's what I noticed, these studios would just hire people from LA, force them, not I wouldn't force them, but say, hey, come on out to Chicago, live out here. And they would be, and as much as my students would go to these meetups at different post houses, it would just be, and they would like, you know, shake our hands and go, oh yeah, we'll hire you. I mean, it was never really the case, because unless they were extremely talented, like super extremely talented, and we're talking really, really talented, then they would maybe get hired on as some sort of runner position, and they would spend a lot of time doing a lot of running, getting a lot of coffee, and then finally they got into compositing, and then they moved on to, you know, bigger and better things. But it just, to me, it kind of turned me off. And it's funny because I also, and I don't want to play the victim card, like, oh, poor victim, you know, but there was definitely a sense like when people look at you when you're older, I think Hugo was talking about this, ageism. They kind of go, aren't you a little old to be trying to get a junior position? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, aren't you a teacher? Why are you trying to work here? You know, it's like, and that's when I kind of realized, and all throughout this, I was making my own business, which is VFX for filmmakers.com.
We all know your YouTube channel, VFX for Filmmakers. And I used to watch that tutorials a lot of times, because most of the tutorials are for somewhat basic level, like roto prep. Can you tell us more about the history or story behind your YouTube channel?
I think I mean, I was originally doing a lot of videos on Vimeo for my students, and I found that it's this, and this holds true today. If I can just make an assignment first day of class, go home and watch 6 videos, why would I have to, like, you know, exasperate the labor to repeat things? So this reality of hybrid of online videos, go home, watch them, come in, we critique in class your work, was a better model. And the idea of repeating the same words over and over and over again, and the fact that students don't show up for class half the time, was like, oh, you have a resource to go and watch a video. So that's how it kind of started. I'm like, I'm going to start making videos. I didn't really intend it to be like a big business. I mean, I did, but I was like, I guess I'll just see what happens. I'm going to make my own business now. So, but I started out with a lot of Nuke videos that I intended that were mine in ownership, but I would use them for my classes and say, okay, learn, it's free. It's 100% free online. So there's no issues, you know, just go do these 5 videos, and then tomorrow bring in the result. And the model worked pretty good as far as teaching, for those that wanted to be there, obviously. So from there, I just made more videos, and then it started really starting to take off. But I took a lot of what I learned in the small window I had over at Filmworkers in Chicago, working on Capital One commercials, which hopefully one day I can stop talking about them. But I had a great mentor, Brad Moore, who is now, he's like a lead compositor at Cinesite in San Francisco. But he taught me a ton. He was nice enough to commit some time and teach me a lot of keying. And then I threw it up there, and I didn't even realize until a little bit later, like, the keyer that we were using at that studio was actually a version of the keyer of Tony's. You know, I thought it was to a certain degree hacked together from different ideas, but I thought, this is such an awesome keyer, I'm going to go online and put it on. And I never really watched Tony's videos to see that all this kind of originated from him. You know? So I think one day Tony emailed me, he's like, hey, I love your training, blah, blah, blah. Really cool. And then I'm like, and then I look at his website, go, wait a minute, there's a lot here that was taken from his, it's in here, you know what I mean? So it was kind of embarrassing at first, and Tony's really cool. So I said, okay, you know, we were both under the same reality of just trying to help people learn stuff, you know? And then there's that whole concept, like, I don't want to teach anybody because I don't want to lose my job. You know what I mean?
What are some of the challenges you faced in your career?
I don't know. I'm going to be like 90 if I ever get to senior compositor at my rate. You know, it's really strange. I kind of feel like my career is just starting in compositing. I've worked in game design. I've worked in production, you know. But as far as like getting, you know, kind of all of a sudden, like, it's weird. Like I said before, COVID opened up the door for these for me to go and work on certain things. I did some stuff for, and I can now say it, for Space Jam 2 at one other post house. And now I'm working on like these Netflix shows. Like when I'm done with you, I got to jump on 3 more shots and all this. But I mean, it's just been nonstop learning from artists out in whatchamacallit, in Los Angeles. So the challenges, I think, is just like I just see that challenge popping up, and it's just I'm just by interviewing, say, Xavier Bork, he was talking about how no studio wants to hire a junior, and they just expect somebody to kind of fall out of the sky at mid-level. And I understand their concern. I'm not saying they're evil or something like why are you doing that, you bad person? Take a risk and waste money on somebody, Yeah. I mean, it makes total sense now. And that's why it's like, but yet at the same time, he said something really interesting. He says television is a great open door to get you into. And that's what like I'm working on right now. I'm working on these television shows, which is great. It's absolutely awesome. And we're having a ball. I mean, I have a great boss, a great team that we work with. And I couldn't be happier. And I tell you, without COVID, like it or not, I mean, if, I wouldn't be able to do this remote work without the fact that the whole industry has changed overnight. I'd still be just here, hoping for that phone call or that connection to get, going to college, get my master's. To me, this college, going to get a master's was sort of like a vacation. Like, okay, I'm just vacating from, a city where I basically never really broke in. So I'm like, okay, I'm out of here, hit the road, Jack. So it was good to kind of just take a step out of that. And TA positions are great because you're not the teacher. You don't have that weight on your shoulders. You're just helping the teacher, which is beautiful. We do grading and so forth, but it's just been really rewarding to still be a teacher, but not have the responsibilities of being a teacher. A lot of people bash teachers. Like it's like I said, I've got students that will hold a grudge because I wasn't Dennis Murin or something. And it's like, if you could only see the amount of labor that teachers put, the amount of time, also how many meetings they got to go to, how much time they got to spend dealing with so much stuff, worrying about, are these students good enough? Do they have what they need? Having advisory meetings, keeping an eye. It is a lot of taking care of a lot of people. And people take that for granted, like, And I understand why certain artists that I used to work with at a game studio were like, I ain't doing that teaching. No way. I know what's involved in it. They would say that, like, I don't want to do that. I want to go to work. I want to get my work done and go home and not have to think about it and not have any curriculum to build, you know what I mean? Or worry about some guy or get some email from somebody, production has its hardships too, obviously, but yeah. That's the mission that I'm trying to do. And I don't monetize my channel. Because I think what's really weird is I just started noticing, I was watching some of my videos on YouTube and there's the commercials on there all of a sudden. I'm thinking because I'm just right now about to hit 15,000 subscribers, are they starting to put ads on there even though I said no ads? It's...
So you didn't turn on your monetization in YouTube?
No, I prefer that nobody would be interrupted with commercials. And for the States, you're probably, I'm guessing at 15,000 subscribers, you're really not going to make that much money. So I never really wanted to ever have that going on, even though I think YouTube is going to force it now on their own for their own benefit. I don't know how that all works, but I just started like now noticing seeing commercials pop up while I'm trying to review the videos that I posted. I'm like, oh, that's weird. But yeah, I mean, it's just the resources are few and far between. I'm not a fan of Udemy. I do have a couple of videos up there, but I'm starting to see as the economy is right now just getting tighter. I'm starting to see a lot of online training sources starting to do, 50% off, 60% off. They're changing their contracts. Now I think Udemy just changed it now to 35%. Before it was 50%, and they're changing it so like And that's why when I didn't know what I was getting into with Udemy. That's why I stopped after 2 videos. I said, I'm not posting any more videos on here. And it's great. I buy Udemy training all the time. It's great stuff.
Mhm.
But at what expense to the author when they have 95% off sales? You know, I mean, you could have some amazing, and you become the culprit because you're like, ooh, look, it's 95% off for $100 tutorial, you know, and do you take part in the the madness of like jipping the proper payment of the teacher, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird where everything's going, you know what I mean? I don't think, and again, if anybody thinks I'm making like serious cash off my website, think twice on that one. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm always pressing, and I'm going to scream it out again and again and again and again. Buy Evan a coffee if you guys know what I'm talking about. Just go to the website, buy him a coffee.
Yeah, and I don't think like in YouTube also we cannot earn that much money with visual effects contents. Yeah.
Unless we start plugging After Effects stuff.
Oh
If
yeah.
you can plug, if you want to go the route of lightsabers and explosions,
Yeah.
you will make a ton of money
Of course, yeah.
because there's that pie. Someone show a pie like Nuke's like that small, and the rest is all After Effects. And
Yeah.
there's all the enthusiasts. You've got 1 million people out there
Mhm.
making videos on YouTube, bazillions of people,
Of
and
course.
they have to require themselves to learn how to use cameras. I got a friend that has a channel with 500,000 subscribers. You know, he's just doing film stuff, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, there's all this demand for it. And now it's moving, it inevitably moved towards the VFX.
Mhm.
Now all these artists, these filmmakers are like, ooh, VFX. I mean, my channel kind of conveys that VFX for filmmakers, you know, but I never wanted it to be like just kind of like crappy visual effects type stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean, I'm not saying After Effects is crappy or nothing. It's just that I can't. It's not a software thing because you'll get a lot of artists who get upset at you because they'll say like, "Well, your software, you're basing everything on software. Software changes." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
but node based, between node based and stack based, that's something that won't change." You know what I mean? You can't hide and set alpha mat above one level. To me, that's insane. The idea of, okay, the alpha is one layer up or below, hit mat, Luma mat. I'm like, why can't we have this nice network where we have different trees of options? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's insane. I think it's insane. People work in After Effects. I know some really great artists that are working in After Effects, making a living. That's great.
Yeah. After
The
pandemic,
cleanup that it.
there is a rush of juniors who is searching for jobs. So everybody wants to learn, and there are tons of tutorials in YouTube. So according to you, what are some of those basic stuff which we definitely need to learn as a junior?
Well, I mean, what I was talking about was cleanup and so forth, but junior obviously involves, as my guests have spoken before, like green screen and
Mhm.
CG and so forth. I think for that type of stuff, there's some really good resources out there.
Mhm.
You just have to find really, really good, just really, really good compers who have a lot of really good experience that are on Udemy. there are some really crazy talented artists that are new compositors, very rarely, but they are on there, and they have some very large scripts that are super complex, and they didn't cut you short, and make it getting your money's worth. I think that's a good resource.
Mhm.
I'm trying to provide through my website through a new series, which will be called Oneers.
Mhm.
I was thinking about calling it Oneers or the money shots, where we take a shot, we go through the whole process of it, and more concentrating more on the AOVs and light pass type stuff.
Mhm.
And get really, really getting in there and just layering and layering and layering and so forth. So me and Evan are working on a sort of like and you guys are going to roll your eyes with a Blade Runner shot that's going to be kind of like that with an actual Blade Runner vehicle and all this crazy stuff. So I'm and a set extension behind it, just trying to build a comp with the help of all these professional artists that I'm interviewing. but I don't want to take any more. I don't want to take a lot of time with any one specific artist because they're busy. I think I've taxed certain people. No, I didn't tax them. They're not like, oh, I'm busy. They're very polite and kind, every one of them. But it's just like I don't want to like make this a part-time job for any one of them. But if we could do musical chairs and go to different artists, they can chime in and because like I said, I'm all for having interviews about VFX artists and talking about their careers. You can learn and glean from that. But at this point, it's a matter of learning all of these plugins and learning all these techniques.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to have a professional artist on, either fix something you did wrong or demonstrate something.
What's your view on the topic automation taking away all the jobs? Right now, everything is getting automated and people are worried about automation. So what's your view on this topic?
I think I should be asking you these questions because I'm in Indiana. I really don't. I don't know what.
Got it.
In regards to software, the copycat node is like I said. I've worked in production and game design, and every 5 seconds, there's always somebody walking in the room going, "Hey, we got this new software here. It does facial capture." And to this day, I've sat and watched the latest facial capture software, and it doesn't cut it. It's still going to require people to go in and hand animate and hand rig. There's no way. I mean, maybe rigging, they might be able to do automation, but especially with this new tool that they have for the Unreal Engine, where people look super real, meta humans or whatever. But I mean, in general, I don't. From what I hear from other artists, I don't see it. Now, you might tell me a different story, but I mean, I played around with that node, the copycat node, and I was getting a lot of weird artifacts like green and red matrices and such. But I was trying to push it to its limits. I wasn't doing a conservative turn of the head and moving a little bit of a rash on his face. I'm sure it might work for that, and it can make a garbage mat, but how much you have to be able, compositing, you have to go there on a per pixel adjustment. And for a machine at this stage to figure that out, a machine, you could teach it like the difference mats to know where to put a garbage mat, but you can't teach it art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't teach an artistic way of doing things. An artistic way might be a correct way. Okay.
I saw you were introducing like many gizmos and plugins in your last videos in your channel. So out of these gizmos which you introduce in your channel, which of them are your favorite? Tough one.
I don't really have a love affair with any one node, but I like the Grad Magic. I've been using that a lot lately. And that's Tony Lyons' plugin. You always saw that thing and you're like, wow, what would I use that for? And you're like, oh, that Grad Mat, I gotta get that Grad Mat, that Grad Magic going. And you're like, oh, this is so cool. It works and it solves my problem. So much of the Nuke Survival Toolkit has solved so many problems so easily. I'm like, well, there's got to be a tool for that somewhere in here. And I'll in faith go, okay, Tony had to have put something in this group of collection that can do this. And I go, oh, there it is. He really did put together a really good collection of stuff to start with. And that's the thing. I hate to say it, but no, I won't say it. This industry has to I think we have to stop acting like magicians. Like, I don't want to give away my secrets, and start helping each other. Compositors do help each other. Every production job I've ever heard of, everybody that tells me where they started out, it's more about in the club type thing. Oh, we're in the studio together, I'll help you out. But as far as online training, it's very quiet. You know what I mean? And then artists, people that don't have a ton of studio experience, again, get sort of blasted because they're like, you're doing it wrong. Well, then show me how to do it right. Because all I'm doing is testing out things, as everybody did, to find something that will work. And then you do it, and you're like, okay, I guess that solved the problem temporarily. And then all of a sudden you get the email, you shouldn't be screening. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, would you mind making a video on that? I'm busy, and I get it. You're busy. You're working a studio. I'm not expecting everyone to be a teacher, but
Yeah.
thankfully, a lot of the people I've had on my show have been so giving. And you know what? I think that's part of someone's success is giving back. It's just being a giver and being there as a team player. It's a very selfless profession. It's a problem-solving profession. And yeah, I think I'm all I'm trying to do. And believe me, I'm not making millions off this website. To try to get that extra level, because there's a million training videos and even more now, which is great, I guess. There's all this Nuke training going out, but now we're starting to see some people produce training.
Can you share some knowledge about cameras and lenses used for filmmaking? And your YouTube channel name is VFX for Filmmakers. So something which is useful for beginners in the industry.
Like stuff they should know. I mean, I don't try to get too picky on that, with the exception of saying, go out and buy a DSLR with a lens that you can take off the front end of the camera, shoot some flares, understand f-stops, understand ISO, go out, shoot some plates, shoot some grids, try to recreate a flare from stock footage, film some stock footage, incorporate it in, yeah, I don't get too, I want to do a tutorial coming up that's kind of going back around to undistort, grain removal, regrain, redistort. It's something a lot faster and simpler. So you would go through neat video just to get used to that, because that workflow has to be, you can try to cheat it and not buy neat video. You know what I mean? And like, all right, great. And so, some studios are cool. They do that, but you got to really watch those roto edges when you try to regrain something, because you might accidentally not be graining the transition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that you got to be careful on that. But again, yeah, it's just getting used to that and just teaching people to bite the bullet and buy neat video.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work. You're going to save yourself so much headache if you just get this down.
So I hope like a lot of tutorials are going to come in your channel.
Like lens tutorials and so forth?
Yeah.
Not so much. I mean, yeah, I mean, that tutorial just on undistortion and grain removal, I've kind of covered those before, but I want to do these lightning round, like I think it was Josh Parks who was saying I think having quick reference videos is really good. So you can go, because sometimes I forget stuff and I'm like, what was that again? I go back to my own videos. I'm like, what did I do? Oh yeah, that, and you just forget, and you can easily go back to them. So that's what I made this new series called Quick Comps. So I'm like, okay, even though some of them aren't so quick, I'm trying to throw someone through the gamut quickly so they can come back and use it without having to sit through a boring tutorial,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard, it's just, I think the best model is what MPC is doing. MPC has their MPC Academy in Montreal, where you're at right now.
Yeah.
And they're doing, obviously it makes total sense. We have movies that are already done. We have the assets. We know what the final product is going to look like. And then we're going to train people to learn these, and then we're going to pick the best of the litter and bring them onto the production. That's the smartest. They have I mean, I'd say as far as like learning VFX, I think Lost Boys is a great, that to me is a great opportunity. You also need teachers that can push you, because, doing this stuff recreationally is extremely boring for the modern video gamer. And they don't want to do it. They don't want to regrain. They don't want to do a retime. They're like, I guess you need someone to say, hey, you better do this, or you're not getting a job, or you're not getting a grade, and there's got to be some, I hate to say it, we are a lazy generation. So,
Yeah.
So, it's like, and you really see the dedicated people that actually take the time to learn, for one thing, and patiently learn and go through a tutorial and remember and put into practice, keep their comps very clean. They're very methodical, but very patient. Those are the guys that break in, you know.
So, what are some of those hard truths about visual effects industry that you think everyone should be aware of? I know this is a controversial question.
Possible to get into. I mean, the reality is you really have to, your reputation, like, you have to be able to solve a problem and solve it within a deadline. There's no excuse. And you got to be in constant communication with your producer. You know, it's just something where you just got to be Johnny. I always call it lickety split, you know, lickety split. You got to be on the ball, you know, I mean, you got to figure it out. You have to be able to solve a problem, you know, and you can't be dipping around, you know, I mean, it's, I hate to say it. And the fact that you have to push yourself with online training as much as you can to go that extra mile. If you really want to work in, you just need a lot of experience too. You need, and one thing I learned, obviously, you need to spend that time, and you know what I'm talking about. Go through roto prep cleanup. You need those basic skills to move on to be a junior. You can't just skip over those unless you're some super genius. You can't just, I'm better than that. Well, that roto stuff, cleanup. No, it's taking those boring little jobs over a period of time and make you a better artist when you go for the hard stuff, you know. And I'm loving where I'm at now because I'm doing all those things. I'm doing, you know, every aspect of that, CG, green screen, you know, all, I mean, just everything. And you know, these are, I mean, it's a blast. I'm having a blast, you know, every day. And now my summer's off. Today was this last Friday was the last day of class, and we've got so much stuff lined up. And I'm like, all right, here's the summer, summer of CG and compositing, you know. And I'm just super jazzed that I have all my classes done, and yeah, it's just been a blast. And also, you got to take time to get the heck out of the house too. Like, you know, I don't know. It just seems insane to be stuck in a studio, dimly lit for such a long time. Some people are like, well, man up, that's the VFX industry. Well, yeah, okay, you know, it's just not healthy. I don't know. Yeah. Now, a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that. Like, well, quit crying, baby, you know, but it's just like, yeah, okay. But just getting time to get out, get exercise. Like, even during this pandemic, I ride my bike every day. And the college is way up on a hill, and I'm in East Lafayette, which is downhill. So I'm like huffing to get up there, and just getting some, like, I spent today just sitting under the sun watching a jazz band play and just getting out, you know, breathing in the fresh air. You know, it was beautiful today too. So
what do you think about the future of compositing jobs, at least after this pandemic?
Like I said, it's a silver lining, at least for me. I got the first call for the stuff for Space Jam 2, and I'm like, I'm in a loft. I don't have no secured server here, you know. They're like, no, that's fine, you know. I'm like, okay. So yeah, that was interesting. It was a lot of hard work too, by the way. But it was but yeah, it was like, wow, okay, now I can work remotely. I think it's great. I go back to the Steve Wright prophecies, the Uber of VFX. The question is, as we're watching online training get cheaper and cheaper, thanks to Udemy doing the 99% off spiel, what happens to compositors when we have to compete with sort of like, the rates are a little lower with me, or this, you know, if some company is like that, you know. So that's something to watch in the future. But I do agree with Xavier that right now we have 1 million small boutiques, and then you've got the top 5 VFX houses that basically either gobbled up or smashed down other VFX houses that were mid-level. Like, mid-level VFX houses are sort of going extinct. I totally think that makes total sense, obviously. But yeah, it's interesting. But again, in order for you to get experience, you need experience. So there's that cycle. There's that paradox where you're like, I want to get a job, but I need the experience. I don't have a job. And I am trying my best to solve that with my YouTube channel by getting them access to these artists, but without taxing these professional artists to the point where they're like, oh, brother, Matt wants me to come on the show again. I'm working on this other movie. I don't have time for this, so I'm trying to allocate one big comp over many artists, and we'll see how that goes. But I want them each to get in there and touch it and move nodes around and customize it to what they want. And I think that's going to be really cool. If we can take one comp that's really cool, like a Blade Runner scene, and say, all right, now we're going to this artist who's in charge of lens flares. He's going to bake us up a lens flare. We're going to this artist who does 3D. We're going to this artist who does lighting. We have a good enough library of artists on the show previously that want to come back on again, that are willing to come back on again under a very limited period of time, that would love to share their knowledge. And I think that's the only way it's going to work if we're going to get this information out,
Got it.
And offer the tutorials for free. I mean, the content for free, basically. Be like what I do. Like I just say, go to my website and download it.
So what are some of those tips and tricks you follow in your work that can help others also?
Just like tips and tricks.
Yeah. Like not related to Nuke or compositing, like general thing.
Okay.
The good habits which you follow. Yeah.
I mean, one thing I've learned more than ever in the last year working for these companies is you really got to double, triple check your comp work. You got to go in and put it at 5 frames per second, 2 frames per second, go through it with finger, arrow key, double check, triple check, make sure every frame is there, hand it in. I think that's something big. And just having the you have to build a reputation as being reliable. You can't hand in slop, Yeah. I don't know about tips and tricks. I mean, just go through a lot of training and not physically, but mentally, or, go through each training video. Don't just look at it, peruse it, go, I think I got it. Maybe you're smart enough to figure that out. Maybe you can watch something that I do and go, I think I see what he's doing. That's cool. But when if you get your hands on some really good comps, physically go through the entire comp, recreate the comp, so really get into the training videos that you have access to that are good. So, and just do a lot of LinkedIn and volunteer for SIGGRAPH. I heard that helps. SIGGRAPH seems to be a good inroad if you volunteer, even online. I know this August they're doing it online, but I'm coming out to next year's SIGGRAPH. So if anybody wants to meet up, I'm going to be trying to hold a meetup. So I think by then the virus will be handled or whatever. So
all this pandemic are going to end.
Yeah, as soon as this nightmare is over.
Yeah, got it. So we have came through all these questions. So thank you, Matt, for joining with us. And finally, I would like to hear some words about Madlookz VFX. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like your channel. I like the fact you're getting into the stuff that is, the foundational stuff that is, and that you're also getting into silhouette, which is really cool. And you also have what I also like is you're introducing things such as, how to be positive in the VFX industry, which is something that is really important. I see the hard labor workers of all of these. You signed up for the circus, you ended up in the carnival. That's what VFX. As a kid, you go to the circus, you're like, oh, this is awesome, I want to do this for a living. And then you're like, wait a minute, we're carnies. We're forced to travel to other places. We're pixel gypsies. You know what I mean? I don't know if our boss is ripping us off. They're not ripping us off, but it's like, you kind of think of like the carnival lifestyle.
Yeah.
I remember seeing, and this is not against anybody with dispersed eyes or nothing, but I remember I was at this carnival and there was this guy there, and he had his eyes were, I don't know, I guess he was born this way. His eyes were actually looking opposite direction. And he was like, and he was like, I'm a carny and I'm going to remain a carny till I die. And I'll never forget that image. You know what I mean? He was like really boisterous about it. I'm going to live and die a carny, you know, and I'm thinking this, I don't know why, but that image kind of pops up in my head when I think about like VFX artists, you know, I was just, no offense to people with disparity in their eyes, you know,
got it.
But anyway, it is what it is. It's an industry. I don't know where it's going. A lot of people say it's unreal and all that stuff. But I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on ILM that looks pretty exciting. I'm just waiting for Dune.
Yeah.
One movie I'm looking forward to, Dune. Yeah. So if anybody out there that is working on the Dune movie that's bold enough to come on my show, come on. Or if anyone's worked on Blade Runner 2049, I'll make it a 6-hour episode, because I just love that movie. I was surprised to see that there really isn't that much VFX in Blade Runner 2049. There wasn't that a lot. There was, but a lot of it was practical. But the CG that was in there, the VFX that was in there, was phenomenal. You know,
it won and yeah.
Because, you know, like something about VFX shots today, I hate to go off on a tangent here, but they don't put any impression on you where you're like, wow, you know, like they did back in the movies. Like, you know, of course, this was the beginning when we had Jurassic Park, but there's a lot of repeat of the same thing. And we don't have those awe and wonderment moments in visual effects anymore. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh my gosh. I said the last time I saw that was Star Wars The Last Jedi, because they had the part where they light speeded through like 4 or 5 giant Star Destroyers, and it just is slow, like boom, you know, and then you just see like this quiet, no sound, this kind of laser light show. And I think that is so cool. But yet it's so simple of a shot. You know, I mean, it's like, it doesn't have to be a complex CG render, but I don't know. Personally for me, I'm not a Marvel fan, or I can't get into those type films. I don't like any movies now. There's not a single movie, with the exception of Dune, I'm looking forward to seeing. There's nothing. I don't want to see a DC movie. I don't want to see a Marvel movie. I don't. There's no real movie. I'm like kind of looking on the horizon going, man, that's going to be good. You know what I mean?
So thank you, Matt, for joining with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be in the green room if you need us.
Yeah. So thank you, Matt, for joining with us in the podcast, and stay safe.
My pleasure. See you.
Yeah.